Welcome back to Talk Today, right on 18 minutes past 9. Now, schools will be told that they do not have a duty to allow children to change their gender identity in new government guidance. It's expected to be published this week.
Well, joining us now is teacher Bobby Seagull, as well as former head teacher Chris McGovern, who's also the chairman of the Campaign for Real Education. Bobby, to you first. Schools have been waiting on these guidelines for a very long time. They are very sensitive, they're very complicated issues that this is trying to deal with. Does it strike the right balance?
Yeah, I think, again, as teachers, it's a challenging issue. I've been a teacher now in secondary schools for nearly a decade. And when I first started teaching, this wasn't something that was taught in training, something that we've experienced in schools or societies. And we've seen in the last few years, it's definitely so that's become more prevalent. So as teachers, we've been looking for guidance. And I think with this, it's going to be tough. You're not going to please everyone all the time with this, but at least it's giving us something as teachers to say, okay, the government's suggesting this. And again, I think as long as teachers, educators, we treat it from a perspective of trying to be compassionate and accommodative. That's the way. Again, young people, adolescence is always a challenging period. If we can try and be accommodative within reason to them.
My question as a parent, and I want to put this to you and Chris, it's easy for me to sit here and say that if my kid was going through that, I would think I wanted to know, right? I would absolutely expect a teacher to tell me. However, and I'll actually bring Chris in first, we have to understand that there are kids brought up by parents who aren't very good, and the school is that safe place. But to put that on teachers, I just have this fear, and I get slaughtered for this comment, Chris, that people, not genuine people, before everybody jumps up and down, but this is gathering sort of popularity, and it worries me that something so important, it's almost sheep-like with some. Do you know what I'm getting at, Chris?
I do, Jeremy. It's from our point of view. Look, I was the head of a Catholic school, so my position is fairly clear. You know, we support the rights of parents, of course, and I think it's the guidance coming out, and it's only guidance for consultation, is sort of Sex Pistols, Anarchy UK guidance. Anything will go. That's going to be more worrying, I think, because schools will do their own thing. I would love to see a situation in the UK where we have school boards elected locally, so decisions can be made locally. But I strongly believe parents should be kept fully informed. And if you cut a chasm or you dig a hole between parents and the school by excluding parents, then that's the recipe for disaster. You're going to break down the families. Parents come first. The legislation in our country is that the first educators of children are parents. So parents have to be kept informed unless there's some very, very exceptional circumstance. And you have to respect people of different faiths. And I recognise that. Most of all, when I was a head teacher, Jeremy, what I said to my children and to the staff, you treat other people as you wish to be treated. Absolutely. That's what you need. And actually, that's all you need. That's all. If you get the rest of it, that's all you need.
Bobby?
Yeah. So again, as educators, we are in the position of in loco parentis. So we're taking the situation of parents in that school period. So it would be problematic in some circumstances if a child says, they're considering changing their gender, not to tell parents. But I think it's even more problematic if there are circumstances where you think actually it might jeopardize that child's safety. Again,
so there are safeguarding.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing about, again, Ofsted often, they'll fail schools, not for education, but for safeguarding. So safeguarding is the most important issue. And again, if a child's from a sort of problematic home, area where they think actually their parents might beat them up or attack them if they said this.
I mean, I get that, but the other side of the coin, and both you and Chris, we haven't got much time. You know, this guidance is going to say if a teacher gets it wrong by I don't know what they're supposed to say anymore. I mean, teachers are being vilified, aren't they, for getting it wrong? That's ludicrous.
Well, I think in the guidance now they're giving a bit more leeway.
Yes, so teachers won't be punished if they misgender someone. Greater protections for children.
But again, just quickly on that, I think it's about teachers showing sensitivity, because if a teacher's willfully misgendering someone, again, things happen by accident, but if they're willfully saying, someone wants to be called a they or a she, etc., but if they're going against someone deliberately to try and upset them, I think that's a different thing. Again, teachers enter the profession because they want to help young people.
Is it an impossible job, Chris, being a teacher nowadays? You've got to worry about pronouns, expected to be some sort of sexual expert, or be a parent, and you get. I mean, it sounds appalling. To be fair.
Well, I taught for 35 years, and I used to say to new staff, you get through the first 20 years, it's not so bad. What I would say is, my colleague said there, teachers are in loco parentis, but actually that's in place of teachers, not instead of parents. Parents must always come first. But we're not a million miles apart on this, but I feel there's going to be a lot more problems ahead because there is an attempt here, I think, perhaps in this legislation, which may or may not come, to exclude some parents. We really have a problem because the government have their hands tied by the Equality Act. They're going to do so much. They're trying to do their best, but I have a feeling we're going to overcomplicate things. We've got to come back to the basic message of most religion: just treat other people as you wish to be treated.
I agree with that.
Some teachers, by the way, have their own agendas. Don't forget that.
Sarah, what do you think about this as a parent? Do you think parents should get more advice and help on dealing with this?
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Is
absolutely.
it being put on teachers?
We're all sort of learning as we go along, aren't we? And we don't know what's coming round the corner with our children. I'd like to think that I would be able to work in tandem with a school. But that's not the case for everyone, is it? Now, the government had considered, Bobby, an outright ban on social transitioning. So you couldn't change your name if you wanted to in school, but they were advised that wasn't allowed. Do you think that would have been going too far?
I think, again, in a sensitive situation like this where we're trying to understand the moral hazards of the cases either way, to have a really firm line saying, now that's definitely not allowed, would have put teachers in a more difficult position. Again, we know that society is changing. Society always changes. And it's about trying to move with the times. It's not about saying, let's just abandon everything. But I think it's about being sensitive. And again,
we used to get called names. Now you can change your name. Yeah? The world has changed.
The world always changes. Society always evolves. 50,000 years ago, we were sitting in caves with fires. And now we're sitting in studios.
Oh, we still support West Ham together. Chris, just finally, very quickly, some will say this guidance is a bit cloudy. Is it a step in the right direction, do you think, for the teaching profession and for parents? Yes or no?
No, it's Anarchy UK, Sex Pistols guidance.
In what sense, Chris?
Because schools are going to have to determine for themselves what they do, so there's not really guidance. So some schools will have very strong positions and they will not be the ones necessarily my colleague holds with. The point is there's a lot of different opinions about this, and therefore my school is a Catholic school. There are other religious schools in the country. They have a particular position. Catholics aren't asked to give their opinion on these matters. They're told what to think. We have a catechism that sets out the faith, similarly with the Islamic faith, similarly with other faiths. So we have a position which is partly religious. That's what we believe in.
Chris, I could talk about this all day, and I'm so pleased. Chris, thank you very much indeed. Bobby, you are a fellow West Ham fan, so you will... Oh, look at that, happy hammers. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. That is all we have time for on Talk today. What a show. Sarah Houston, you've been amazing. Thank you very much indeed.